Thank you for joining our family of companies for our Stretch Your Project and Maintenance Budget webinar. Before we get started, I will go through our webinar format. We have 4 speakers today who will each talk for about 10 minutes. Participants are not visible and will be muted at all times. We encourage questions, so please ask all of your questions through the Q&A function. We will answer all of your questions at the end of the presentation. As a thank you for joining us today, we will follow up with you after the webinar with information on your free pavement analysis. Today's webinar will start out with a brief overview of our family of companies. Our main topics include starting a project, pavement maintenance, structural concrete, and general contracting services. The purpose of today's webinar is to provide expert information and advice to help in your facility and property maintenance or your future project. I'm Stephanie Thompson, Director of Business Development at the Walbeck Group. Our team of experts in speaking order include Craig Donzie, Payne & Dolan Engineering Manager, Todd Morris, Pavement Expert representing Payne & Dolan and Northeast Asphalt, Jim Mantis, Zenith Tech Senior Construction Manager, and Jake Brucker, Payne & Dolan General Contracting Manager. Founded in 1930, we are a vertically integrated family of heavy civil engineering, construction, and material supply companies. We can provide turnkey engineering and construction services, and our team includes 1,500 skilled professionals. The branding name Walbeck was developed less than 5 years ago to connect our family of companies. The name Walbeck is after our founder, Walter Bechtold. Our family of companies include Payne & Dolan, Northeast Asphalt, Zenith Tech, Premier Concrete, and Construction Resources Management. Now on to our first speaker, Craig Donzie.
Thanks, Stephanie. Starting a new project, now what? Simply put, we want you to call your integrated design, construction, and materials production experts at the Walbeck Group. As Stephanie mentioned, in 2014, Payne & Dolan made a conscious decision to add engineering and surveying services to its core capabilities. I'm Craig Donzie, a licensed engineer in Wisconsin and Michigan, and a licensed land surveyor in Wisconsin. I serve as the engineering and surveying group manager for the Walbeck Group, and I'm also a lead accredited professional in building design and construction. I'm one of 20 or so individuals recognized as a certified roundabout designer by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, with expertise in vertical design of multi-lane roundabouts across the country. Our engineering and surveying group has an annual volume of nearly $2 million, similar to most of the mid-sized consulting firms in Wisconsin. Our engineering and surveying group currently consists of 12 team members, 4 senior professional engineers, 2 licensed land surveyors, 4 survey crews, and 2 staff engineers. Our completed site civil designs include industrial, single-family, and multifamily residential, institutional, and retail projects throughout the state of Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. When we share our site civil design capabilities with new clients, we most often hear, "I didn't know that Payne & Dolan can do that." I've put together the list of design tasks that we are experts at completing and that can add value to your next site civil project. As you can see, the Walbeck Group is structured to be able to provide cradle-to-grave site improvement design and construction services. From site feasibility and land planning to value engineering and budgeting, please consider contacting the Walbeck Group for your site civil design needs. When I ask prospective clients who've worked with traditional consulting engineering firms, the most common questions are, how can I minimize our entitlement duration? I usually tell them start early and always look ahead for roadblocks. Focus on the critical path and manage your municipal approval processes. My follow-up question is typically, what were the financial implications of your previous entitlement experience? And were there construction cost implications? The Walbeck Group is simply different. We focus on and manage the entitlement process on every project. We are construction-minded and cost-conscious. Another key focus of the Walbeck Group is to utilize our combined design and construction expertise to minimize change orders. There's several common areas that we know can result in change orders if not identified early in our client-project relationships. We depend on our clients to share their project goals and concerns with us early so we can focus on the unique aspects of that project throughout the site civil design and entitlement process. What prior approvals, historical land uses, and zoning implications might impact your project? What wetland and waterway features are nearby your project that might impact your project goals? Our group will focus on obtaining permits from day one. If you take away two things from today's webinar, I'm hopeful that it will be: you can reduce your overall project delivery costs by selecting the Walbeck Group for your site civil design and construction partner. We will start with a solid plan, allocate the necessary resources to obtain permits on your timeline, and minimize change orders. Experience matters. I often am asked, how do I get more for less from my site civil consultant? Hire an experienced team of experts and consider who will provide you the best value. Develop a relationship with your professionals and surround yourself with a team of experts. The principal of a firm can't complete all of the work. The senior staff are the ones that matter and will have the most influence on making your project a success. Our clients will continue to have opportunities to reduce total project delivery costs by bundling site design and construction. A little later, Jake Brucker will share with you some of those success stories. Our engineering and surveying group is always focused on what it will take to get each project approved and permits issued for construction. This is a completely different mindset than most of the site civil design providers in the market, and a major differentiator for the Walbeck Group. Simply having the design completed is not enough. Permits are required to advance to construction. My role as the group leader is to always ask these questions throughout the life of our projects. What permits will be needed, and make sure we identify potential roadblocks early, typically while in the scoping stage of the project. Who has permit jurisdiction? This is often not a single entity and involves overlapping roles and authority at the state, county, and local levels. Have we identified all the permits needed, and how can we get them sooner? This is where the Walbeck Group's experience and relationships matter the most. The engineering and surveying group also provides professional services to support our core business function: material production, asphalt paving, and site civil construction. Internal and external clients have depended on our group to complete detailed site condition assessments to empirically determine the level of deterioration and identify defects in their site improvements, and then develop construction plans to restore them to like-new condition. We can identify and correct drainage challenges that are an unwanted risk, inconvenience, or negatively impact the use of your property. We can identify and correct accessibility risks or site improvements that are no longer in compliance with current standards. We've developed proactive maintenance schedules, prepared long-range rehabilitation plans based on budget constraints and to allow for capital expenditure planning. We've prepared construction plans and obtained permits necessary to reconfigure, expand, or reconstruct areas on your properties. We can develop present value for site infrastructure discounted to consider remaining service life for the purpose of property sale, property taxation, and financial planning. Please consider contacting the Walbeck Group for your infrastructure design, land surveying, and capital planning needs, and let our team of design professionals show you why the Walbeck Group is different from your traditional site civil consulting firm. Let me introduce you to Todd Morris, one of Payne & Dolan's pavement and parking lot experts that focuses on rehabilitation and maintenance of existing parking lots throughout the state of Wisconsin. Todd?
Thank you, Craig. As mentioned, I'm a project manager with Payne & Dolan and Northeast Asphalt, which are our paving branches of the Walbeck Group. And I'm going to be discussing pavement maintenance and, in particular, how to achieve the longest possible lifespan out of your asphalt pavement. The third-party source that sets the standards in our industry throughout the state is called WAPA, which is the Wisconsin Asphalt Pavement Association. And every year they come out with an asphalt parking lot design guide. And here's their 2021 version, where right inside it says the typical life expectancy of a parking lot in Wisconsin is up to 25 years with proper maintenance. So let's take a look at the three components that make up your parking lot system. On the bottom, we've got the subgrade layer, which is basically the earth that's there when we start the project. Once we dig that out to the proper depth, we are then at the aggregate base course, which is going to consist of either stone or crushed concrete. And on top of that, we've got the asphalt layer. Now, the thicknesses of the asphalt and base course are going to depend on what that subgrade layer is, and also what kind of traffic we're experiencing on the asphalt. Jumping back to WAPA recommendations, they're recommending that if you've got a parking lot on the top table here that's less than 50 stalls, that we should have a base course that is between 8 and 12 inches thick and asphalt of 3 to 4 inches. Now, on the bottom table, if your parking lot is greater than 50 stalls, they're now recommending to do a base course between 10 and 14 inches with 3.5 to 4 inches, 4.5 inches of asphalt on top. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I want you to understand that your parking lot is so much more than what you see on the surface. Your entire parking lot system is made up of almost 20 inches of material that we need to maintain and protect in order for it to last 25 plus years. Now, this is my favorite slide. It very simply shows the life cycle of an asphalt pavement. On the left-hand side, we have the pavement condition in a 1 through 10 scale. And on the right-hand side, we've got the years going by. Let's say we had an owner that decided they weren't going to put any money into maintenance. Well, that's what that red dotted line represents. So you can see they start out with a brand new parking lot up at a 9 or a 10. As the years go by, they get to about 10 years out and cracks start to happen. Well, instead of doing any maintenance, like I said, they're just going to let the parking lot totally degrade over time. Once they get to about 12 years out, that parking lot is moved from a 10 rating down to a 6, a 40% drop in quality in 12 years. But the next 4 years is where it gets really interesting. You can see from years 12 to 16, if you follow that curve, we've got another 40% drop in quality. And then it only takes 16 years before that parking lot reaches total failure and they're having to rebuild it from bottom up. So that's a far cry from the 25 years that WAPA recommends that your parking lot should last here in Wisconsin. So let's get a better understanding of where that rating system comes from. The University of Wisconsin Transportation Information Center came up with something called the PASER rating system for asphalt roads. And what it is, it's a 1 through 10 rating system where they can rate the condition of your road and then give you a basic maintenance or repair that would take care of the road given its rating. Well, this works great for roads, but unfortunately, parking lots are not roads. They often encompass more square footage, they're flat, which can lead to drainage issues, and they have different traffic patterns. So here at Walbeck, we came up with a rating system made specifically for parking lots, where we inspect the lot and then give a rating and repair recommendation based on what it needs. It's similar to the PASER rating, but it focuses in more detail on properties that are in the 3 through 7 ranges, because we have specific remedies for each one of those ratings. The reason our customers really love this service is because it lets them know what stage their parking lot is in, as well as the current cost of repairs. But it also answers that big question for them. What if we decide to wait on this project a few years? So let's say we had a parking lot that was in, let's say, a 6 ranking, which we consider to be good condition. Well, at that point, we generally would recommend a routine maintenance such as a crack filling or seal coat, which you can see can be budgeted at about $1 a square foot. So now that customer knows exactly where they stand if they were to go ahead and get their recommended maintenance done today. But they can also look and see what's going to happen if they wait. If they decide to wait, and now all of a sudden that parking lot goes down to a 5, which we consider to be fair, now they might be looking at a process called a mill and overlay for the repair option, which is going to be a little bit more expensive, up to that $2 a square foot. But unfortunately, a lot of times we get calls from customers that are being reactive rather than proactive. So the one thing I'd really like you to take from my presentation today is try to be proactive and get a hold of us when your parking lot is still at the 6 or 5 range. Because once it gets down to a 3, 2, or 1, we're going to have to do some very extensive repairs that are going to be, unfortunately, more expensive, as you can see on the right-hand column. So let's go back to my favorite slide for a minute. Remember before we had the owner that did no maintenance and their parking lot only lasted 16 years? Let's take that same owner and see what would happen if they did the proactive, if they were proactive and did the regular basic maintenance. So now when they get out to that 10-year point, and they start to notice some cracks starting to form, they get a hold of us, and we come out there and do some crack filling and take that parking lot from an 8 back up to a 9 or a 10. A few years go by, same thing happens, more cracks start to form. They call us up. We do the same type of basic maintenance and repair, and year after year, they keep restoring their parking lot from an 8 or 7 to a 9 or a 10. And as the years keep going out, they've now passed that 16-year threshold and are past 25 plus years before they are totally replacing that parking lot. So I think this picture really illustrates the point that I'm making. If you take a look at this picture at the top, you notice that there's some water that's slightly pooling at the top there. Well, that's because there's no cracks there, right? As you look down the picture, you see these cracks and there's no water. Unfortunately, that water has now penetrated through the asphalt and is doing damage to the base course. If you take a look at the picture on the right here, this is what we would consider to be in a 6 or a 7 rating, where we still have time to come in and do crack filling on this to prevent the water from getting through the asphalt. A lot of times we get called to projects that look like the picture on the left here, where a customer is asking us to do a crack filling. And unfortunately, this is a rating of about a 2 or a 3, and it's past the point of crack filling. This needs to be totally reconstructed. As you can see, what you see here damaging the surface, these cracks, they only get bigger and spread out more and let more water through to the base course. And once it hits your base course, it's going to wash away that base course, which is giving your whole parking lot system the stability that it needs. So as I mentioned, if we had a parking lot that was in what we consider a good stage, stage 6, we typically would do a crack filling, which is basically a rubberized bead of caulk that's going to cover up all those cracks and prevent water from getting through. And the only way you can make sure that that's working is to cover every one of those cracks. So that's why this process has to be done every few years, because of the freeze and thaw cycle that we experienced here in Wisconsin is going to produce more cracks every year. So the only way to make sure that it's protected is to cover every single one of those cracks. Now let's say we had a parking lot that was a little worse off in stages 4 or 5, what we'd consider to be fair or poor. Now we can come in and do mill and overlay or some base patching or a combination of the two. This is a really cost-effective way of getting a brand new parking lot without spending the money of a total repair. So this is a great stage to catch your parking lot in. Now, if you take a look at our next slide here, what this is showing on the left-hand side is doing some base patching, and we do that on areas of the parking lot that are soft. Some areas that are, have really bad cracks. That's going to mean that underneath is probably going to have some soft spots. So if we can come through, replenish those soft spots with a nice stable base course, and then take the rest of your parking lot that's not in bad shape and just mill that off. That's what you see in the upper right-hand corner. We can then go and pave over both of those areas and give you a brand new parking lot that's going to last you 25 plus years, while keeping the cost down. Now, unfortunately, like I said, many of our customers get a hold of us when their parking lot is in the stages 1 through 3. So here we're seeing severe cracking. When you see this much cracking on a parking lot, that means that there's a lot of water that's gone through and probably ruined your base course. So in that case, undercuts would be necessary, and that's what we're showing here. So they've removed the asphalt, and you can see the base course is spoiled. We need to get rid of that and put in there something that's going to be more stable that we can pave over. Once we have got the new base course, we're going to shape it so it drains correctly, and then pave it, and then voila, a brand new parking lot. With your knowledge that you have now, should last you 25 years. And again, how do you achieve that 25 plus years? It's with the regular basic maintenance. It's being proactive. It's getting a hold of your contractor while your parking lot is in a stage 6 or 7 and keeping that cost down, that repair cost down over time, so you can achieve the longest possible lifespan out of your asphalt pavement. So that being said, let me ask you this. What would your parking lot rate? Well, luckily for you, you don't have to answer that question because as part of this, watching this webinar, we are offering the free pavement evaluation where we come out and offer that service for you. And we will be getting a hold of you to set that up. But here's all my contact information. If you need to get a hold of us before then, feel free to do that as well. And with that, I'd like to introduce Jim Mantis from Zenith Tech. Jim?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Mantis with Zenith Tech. I'm a senior construction manager here and also a licensed professional engineer in the state of Wisconsin. I'm here today just to talk about a few of the services that Zenith Tech can provide for our commercial and industrial clients. Most people are at least somewhat familiar with Zenith Tech. If they've driven past a road construction project with a bridge, there's a good chance that we were involved in something in your area right now or in the recent past. So a few other services we provide outside of bridge construction. We do carbon fiber wrapping, other types of concrete rehab. We do shotcreting, post-tensioning work, foundation work, deep and shallow. We do other kinds of rehab, including epoxy injections, as well as underwater repairs. So today I'm going to talk about a couple different examples of some of those service lines as they relate to some recent projects that we've done. So the first one I'm going to discuss is at the Milwaukee Public Museum parking garage, as well as the Kilbourne Tunnel. So what was going on here is this concrete was poured as part of a project in the past that the museum did, and they were actually going to put a building over it, but they never did. So the concrete wasn't adequate to be outside. It didn't have the correct air content, so it's deteriorated over the years, and they would like to use this space for some parking now for special visitors and staff. So the goal here was to remove this deck for them, which is over the top of their parking structure, as well as over the top of the Kilbourne Tunnel. This is the south tunnel. So we pulled the deck off, we reformed it and put it back in place. And now they have a slab that'll work for them at this location. So another example of some repair work that we did. This is an industrial client. They had a loading dock that was in bad condition due to salt on top of the concrete and just deterioration over the years. So we did a remove and replace of their loading dock to rehab this so they could use it for their needs. So this is a small example of structural steel. We also do, large structural steel as it relates to bridges and other large structures, but we don't only do large jobs, we do smaller jobs as well. So this one specifically is in the city of West Dallas. They needed a new bus shelter. They wanted to dress this area up a little bit. So we came in and set the steel for this, as well as did the decorative concrete. And there's now some final landscaping around this area and made it look really nice at this corner. So within Zenith Tech, we also have an entire service line of flat work concrete construction. So we can handle curb and gutter, mechanical pads, outside concrete, inside concrete, foundation walls, that kind of thing. But this specifically here is just kind of highlighting our experience with stamped and colored concrete. So we don't have to just put in your typical concrete. We can dress up entryways, walkways, or other areas on a site with these stamped and colored concrete type finishes. This specific example is on a highway project, but certainly can do it on a site as well. Earth retention is another service that we provide. This is one example here of a soldier pile and lagging wall. This customer came to us, they needed a solution to put a new pit inside their building. This is a pretty heavy industrial site. It's actually a metal forge shop. And they needed to put a new piece of equipment inside the shop that required some more clearance and this pit to be installed within their building. So this is kind of a unique application of doing some shoring inside of an actively operating forge shop without any disruptions to their day-to-day operations here. So this is just one type of earth retention option that is available, the soldier piles and lagging. We also do sheet piling, we can do shotcrete faced, we can do multiple other things that are based on your site conditions and your needs for your project. We can help develop that solution. So we do the in-house engineering as well to develop those solutions through our in-house structural engineers. We have 3 of them right now. This is the Beloit Powerhouse Riverwalk project. This is a little bit of a complex project we did last summer. It's in the city of Beloit, right in front of the Beloit College, which is pictured here. And there's a lot of stakeholders involved in this project, as well as another active construction site right next to us. That building was actually being constructed at the same time we were putting this bridge together. So a lot of coordination between the state, the city of Beloit, Beloit College, as well as the DNR to make this thing a success. But now it's a great area for the students to use right next to their new student union, which is this old Beloit powerhouse, as well as the new field house that was just constructed there. We also do emergency structural services should anybody need those. This specific example right here was a partial roof collapse due to this beam failure you see in the picture on the left. What had happened was the masonry wall failed. It was supposed to be grouted solid with a column in it, and it wasn't. And eventually something overloaded the roof and caused it to start crumbling, and the beam started coming down. So luckily it caught itself there. They made a phone call to us on a Friday. We were there that morning. We're able to put some towers in that day. And on Monday, we jacked it back up into its final position for permanent repairs to be done. So just a snapshot of how quickly we can react should you need something in an expedited timeline. This is an example of some shoreline dock wall work that we have going on right now as well. So I did mention sheet piling before. This site was lined with sheet piling all the way around it. The customer had some issues with the rising Lake Michigan levels right now, and water was splashing over the top of this site, over the sheet piling on this site. So a solution was designed between Craig Donzi's group, who spoke earlier from GEO, as well as the structural engineers from Zenatech, to come up with this splash wall design for part of the site where the sheet piling was still in good shape. So it just effectively extended the height of the wall, so just to keep the water off the site. And then in parts of the site where the sheet piling was actually failing, currently there's a solution being installed there to replace the failed sections of that sheet pile wall. So the last service line I'm going to talk today about is retaining walls. This is something that we do regularly. A lot of different kinds of retaining walls out there. 2 of them pictured. The one on the left is actually soldier piles and lagging walls, similar to a couple slides ago, the picture that was shown. And then there's actually a concrete face that's poured in front of this to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing. So this project is actually in the city of Waterford. And they just wanted to dress up this area a little bit as it's right in their downtown area and make it look nice for this project. So that's something that can definitely be done, as well as railings put on top for safety purposes. In the picture on the right, this is a mechanically stabilized earth wall that's in Wauwatosa. So just another example of a different type of retaining wall that can be installed here. This one, it's precast pieces that come out, and they have straps on the back that engage the soil to keep it in place. Just wanted to demonstrate a little bit of the breadth of our knowledge of retaining walls here, and that there's a lot of different solutions out there. A lot of them have different price points and work well in different conditions. And between our engineering and construction professionals, we can surely help you pick the right one that's the most cost effective for your application. So with that, I'll introduce Jake Brucker. He's our general manager of our general contracting division of Payne & Dolan.
All right, thanks, Jim. So today what I'm going to go over is what tie together what Craig, Todd, and Jim talked about, and tie some of those different attributes together with some projects that we've done in recent history. So you can see here's a list of the things that we've talked about, and I'll talk about some project examples that we've done. So the first project that I want to go over is the main parking lot at Kohler Company. So this was a 22-acre parking lot, and the contract model for this was a design build delivery model. So we designed it and constructed it. The two main challenges with this project from a design perspective was first the very flat. So the site drainage was an issue, and as a result of that, they got a lot of ponding water, and in freezing conditions, they'd have employees slipping, tripping, and falling, and having some issues related to that in their when people come and go to work after they parked. The other issue is traffic flow. It's a 22-acre parking lot with numerous foundries. So at shift change, you had people getting in their car, trying to get on with their life, and just driving like NASCAR out there. So it was a really neat. Those were the two main issues we had. So the solution, the first thing we did to address the drainage was we raised the middle of the parking lot 6 to 8 feet to get some relief to allow the water to drain, and we strategically placed inlets. And what we used to raise the site 6 to 8 feet is we used foundry sand. So foundry sand is a byproduct of industry for Kohler. It's a byproduct of their kitchen and bath casting process, toilet casting process. And the only way to get rid of that for this client is they have to put it in a landfill. Landfills are expensive. So we came up with a pretty good idea to use that to raise the site. So it was a good bonus for everyone there. So that's what we did to address the drainage issues. And then for the traffic flow issue, Craig mentioned before, we have a niche with roundabout design throughout the country. And that's why we came up with these roundabouts. It looks kind of odd in a parking lot, but this is a 22-acre parking lot again, and it did a great job of really corralling the traffic and reducing the issues they had with traffic incidents in the parking lot. And again, this was a design build delivery model, and we did it over the course of a year and a half. So the next project here is the Medical College of Wisconsin in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. This was designed by a different firm for the client. So this particular contract delivery model was a CM, or a construction manager, with a cost plus a fixed fee. Very similar to a very similar contract model that some of you would use for your campuses and buildings, for building additions or new building construction for like a Bolt or a Myron or someone like that kind of delivery model. And we can do that for an infrastructure-based project as well. So the challenges on this one, basically what happened is the job got designed and the client came to us and they say, hey, our engineering company's telling us this is a 2-year project. We'd like Waldbeck or Payne and Dolan to look at it and see if you can trim it down a bit. So we were able to look at it and eliminate some phases and reduce the construction time frame from 2 years to 1 year. And that proved to be quite a big deal for employee engagement, and obviously they had to bus people in and out from an off-site location. So if you take busing from 2 years to 1 year, that's a huge cost savings. So the next project is one we just recently finished. Empire Mine, Cleveland Cliffs International is a company that manages mines throughout the U.S. and it's an iron ore mine. So what they do, they mine iron ore and they turn it into these little pellets. They look like marbles, and they ship it out. Thousands and thousands of tons via rail to the ore dock in Marquette. It then gets loaded onto barges and goes to their customers. So this particular project was replacing failed box culverts under the railroad. So they had to this is a planned outage to shut down the railroad and therefore shut down their business, basically, for a period of time this winter. So that was the challenges with this. It was a very tight time frame, winter conditions in Marquette, Michigan, and anyone who knows those conditions, it's very cold, a lot of snow and variability there. Another challenge was it in very close proximity to a American transmission line, an ATC line, so we had to do some different things there to work around that. So the solution to all these things with a very tight time frame, winter conditions, transmission lines, is planning every detail, every phase and every stage of the work, and having contingency plans in case something happens. Again, this and that particular job was very traditional. It was designed by somebody else. It was put out to bid by the engineering firm on behalf of the client, and so design, bid, build, very traditional. So here's some project delivery methods that I went over: design, build, cost plus a fixed fee, design, bid, build. We also have done guarantee maximum price, so GMP. And this is just to show that there's a lot of options out there for contract delivery models. There's plus and minuses to all of them. So if anyone want to talk about some pluses and minuses and how these things could fit for your needs, feel free to reach out. And with that, I'll put it back to Stephanie, and she'll do some Q&A.
Thank you, Jake, and thank you to our presenters. We will now answer questions. Please ask all your questions through the Q&A button. To start out, what is the typical size of projects that your group manages? So let's start with Craig.
I think you're on mute, Craig.
We do have a wide range of project sizes that we are involved with. Typically, we have our average project size is about $12,000, with that ranging from as few as a couple $100 all the way up to over $100,000 contracts.
Jake, do you want to also answer that question?
Yeah, sure. From when you talk about the group of companies, family companies within Waldeck, from a construction contract, pure construction work. I mean, it's anything from small patches, asphalt patches with a few $1,000s, anywhere up to a large DOT job to, 30, 40 million and everywhere in between. So, I mean, we definitely have the capability to do, just about any type of, volume of project.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, a lot of the projects that we showed today were some of our larger projects, but we definitely can handle any size parking lot. It doesn't have to be a big, 50 plus stall parking lot for us to help you out.
All right, the next question. Looks like you do both concrete and asphalt flat work. What should I consider when choosing between the materials as a flat work solution? Todd, do you want to take that one to start?
Sure. We generally are going to recommend asphalt for most locations and conditions, but concrete definitely is going to come into play, especially around dumpster pads. That's an area where the garbage truck comes in and with its weight and its vibratory features, it can do a lot of damage to asphalt. Anywhere where you have a stationary load sitting, so if you've got some semi trailers that are going to be parked over an extensive period of time, we typically would recommend using concrete there as well.
Next question, is there a cost savings for a design build delivery method? Jake, can you take that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's very dependent on the size and everything, but in general, design build delivery model is great for fast-paced delivery of a project. It really streamlines the process, and so there's efficiencies gained there, economies of scale, and the biggest thing too is when the engineer and the constructor are working in tandem, there are huge benefits from a constructability standpoint that turns into it basically makes a less expensive project in the end. When you work through constructability reviews through 30, 60, 90% design, it ends up being less in the end.
And that could totally be the same with a CM model as well as a design build. So if we're not the designer but are working with the designer, totally get some good benefits out of that as well, and good budgeting along the way.
Yeah, and speaking of budgeting, Craig, can you talk about the budget estimating that your group can provide?
Sure. Yeah, the budgeting we do is really, we have a benefit of being able to rely on construction partners like Todd, Jim, and Jake that as we do put together engineers' estimates with quantities, we have team members that can help us utilize or develop prices that are predictable, as opposed to just typical engineering approach would be to grab prior bid cycle information and try to extrapolate it to the project you're currently working on. Again, the upside is these guys work with production rates, current material pricing, forecasting material pricing into the future, and so we do see a significant difference in estimates that are prepared either directly by the construction management and general contracting partners, or even our group when we've got greater resources to rely on.
All right, next question. How often does WAPA recommend seal coating asphalt parking lots? And how often do they recommend crack filling? Todd, that one would be for you.
Sure. I don't believe they actually give you a time frame for that. They just basically are recommending those repairs when you're noticing some of the preventative triggers, which would be the cracking. Now with seal coating, that's more of an aesthetic fix than the crack filling is going to be. The crack filling is going to be the most important thing that you can do, because that's going to prevent that water from penetrating through the pavement. So I would say just, you have to pay attention to your asphalt or get a hold of your contractor to have them come out and do a rating for you.
All right, the next question. What determines if stormwater requirements are needed on a reconstruct or a new addition to a parking lot? Craig?
Yeah, that's a fun one. So every project, every time when we scope it, we have to look that up. Every community's got their own rules, and then there's overlapping authorities between the local community, whether it's a town, city, or village, and the county. And then both of those are overlapped by the state requirements. So we start at a state level, check the county. If it's a township and if it's a village or a city, then we've got to go to those local ordinances. So it's unique for every project in every community. It's not a boilerplate across the state, but the kind of the caution is if you're disturbing more than 5,000 square feet, which isn't very much, or more, we need to look it up every time.
All right, next question. I have a contractor pushing concrete overlays for parking lots. What benefits or concerns are there? Todd, do you want to take that one?
Yes, if they're doing a concrete overlay over asphalt. I'm not sure if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, I'll say it again. They have a contractor pushing concrete overlays for parking lots. So yeah, concrete over asphalt, sounds like. What are the benefits or concerns with that?
I'd say my concern would be, that the asphalt and concrete work, pretty differently. The asphalt is more of a flexible surface where the concrete is not. So putting that more rigid surface over something that's going to flex doesn't always give you the stability and strength that you would need.
So there's several of these parking lots that were concrete overlays, thin concrete overlays, very small jointing patterns that our group, Payne & Dolan and Northeast Asphalt, are collectively watching from a technical perspective. We've seen several up in the Fox Valley, and we've got a couple that we're watching down in Southeast Wisconsin currently. The big difference that we're seeing for that concrete overlay is not fixing sub-base failures. So there's asphalt failures, kind of the 1 to 3 range that Todd showed you, pretty significant alligator cracking and rutting, which is really base failure. The stone beneath the pavement has failed, and in often cases we're aware of 2 of these installations there's almost no stone under that asphalt, and that's the reason that asphalt was having distress in addition to age. When the two of those concrete overlays that I'm personally aware of, neither one of those did they go in and make fixes to that. So when you take a flexible, as Todd said, a flexible support system for a rigid concrete pavement, that's one of the reasons that they're making really small joint patterns. So you've got, where you would normally see 20 by 20 concrete panels, most of them are 4 by 4. So you've introduced a lot more joints, which is going to ultimately allow a lot more water into the base. So I think that concrete overlay is fairly new in our market, and we're keeping a really close eye on it to try to help our owners and clients understand, how are these expected to perform? What's the price difference between them? How do we, how do we stay competitive with somebody looking at concrete overlays versus asphalt rehabilitation?
So along those lines, can your group develop a site-specific asphalt mix? Craig, you can take that one.
Sure. So Payne and Dolan and Northeast Asphalt have a significant technical services group that is our mixed design, materials testing support entity. It supports both companies all the way from aggregate production to asphalt production on big and small projects. There are custom mix designs that are done for all kinds of projects. A project out at Road America for a go-kart track had a highly polymerized asphalt surface to deal with the tearing that wanted to occur from the lateral forces from the go-karts. And that surface has been in place for several years now and is performing incredibly well. One of the things that we do recommend on particularly asphalt parking lots for some of our national clients is to increase the asphalt content in those mix designs. DOT's mixes are very thin on asphalt content. They're using as little asphalt as possible to make their dollars go further. What that doesn't do on a parking lot is keep the pavement together. It causes advanced or accelerated cracking just because there's simply not enough liquid in those mixes. So one of the things that we are doing on projects, parking lots that we're particularly involved, is we're encouraging those owners to increase the AC content. It doesn't add a lot of money to the parking lot, but it sure adds life.
And another question, if more than one Walbeck company is involved in a project, does one of the companies take the lead? If so, how do you decide which one? Jake, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah. Typically, it depends on the type of work and if it's 50% site work or 20% concrete like that, predominantly we'll make a decision based on that. But yeah, so that's typically how it works. And usually if we're managing it overall as a prime, Payne and Dolan typically will take that role on typically. And conversely, if it's predominantly a structure job, Zenatech would do it. Or, obviously Northeast Asphalt, Payne and Dolan works very similarly. So that's how that decision's made.
Yeah, oftentimes we're, the lead company also taking into consideration where that client relationship is. What's the long-term client relationship? What's been prior client relationship? Whether Northeast Asphalt, Zenatech, or Payne and Dolan takes the lead, really is, as Jake said, it's project by project, relationship by relationship, scope of work by scope of work determined.
All right, well, that is the end of our questions. Then we will wrap this up. Thank you to everybody who joined our webinar today. I hope you found this beneficial. We will be reaching out to you, as Todd said, to talk about the pavement analysis of your parking lot and following up with you as well, but feel free to reach out to us. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.